Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This week I'm back for a new video and this time we have some groove with Kuss. So as usual, I'm gonna go through all of the elements of the track. You can check the project file in the link in the description if you want it. And now let's get into it. So I'm gonna first dive into my kick bass or kick rumble as usual, and this is how it sounds. So I have three different layers. For this one I have the kick group, the rumble group, and a bass group which is composed of congas and some sub bass. Of course, on the whole group I have some group processing that I'm gonna put off for now. I'm gonna dive into the kick part. So for this kick part, which is the punch, I'm gonna have two channels. I have a 909 kick punch. Pretty simple here. So it's a basic 909. I'm gonna give it all the character from the saturator. And I'm gonna clean it, especially the boxiness here, just under 1K, and also a bit of resonancy here because of this distortion. I'm gonna have just a transient part, just that mid part here. And all of this is gonna be cleaned up and muffled through this EQ. I'm especially here cutting those boxiness sounds in the mid-range. You usually have all of this kind of boxiness in that frequency area, but I'm gonna boost back here in my group processing and add up some high-end to have a better tonal balance. So this is my kick punch. Then I have the rumble. So for this rumble, as usual, I'm using the effects subverb, which is a sample from Ableton. And I'm gonna have two different channels, one for the low end and one for the lower mids. So here I'm playing with the sample to take the part of it that is better to my liking. And I'm gonna have different movement depending on where I put the starting point. I'm gonna also play with the pitch to get something that sounds good with my kick punch. And then I'm just gonna EQ, especially here, to accentuate that resonancy, and then sidechaining, of course. Here I want my sub to be in mono. And I'm adding also here that little movement, and this one is also another part, and it's just longer here, so it adds also a bit of movement that's different from the low rumble. So all of this together is my kick rumble. And then I'm adding here a sub. So I have first this conga, which is just a basic sample. Again, I put it with a low pass filter. I really want something muffled and more dark, so that's why I EQ like this. I make sure it's sidechain properly, and then I put a sub note, which is actually in the key of my kick. So to check the key of my kick, just take here a spectrum and identify the root note, and then I put the sub like this, and here just making sure it's also sidechain. So all together, this is how it sounds, and everything's gonna be compressed and boosted thanks to these tonal balance EQs to add a bit more high end, making sure I don't have too much lower mids, and then compressing the whole thing. I'm also using stage 1 to put the bass really in the center, had a bit of wideness in the mid-range, and having almost everything in the center for the transient part. So this is my final kick rumble. On top of that, I just have a texture here. It sounds like this. So at first it's just a Foley sound, and actually it's just some glass sound that I've pitched down. So already by pitching it down, you get something a bit more dark. bit more dull. And then I'm using the grain delay, which is going to be used a lot in this track. It really adds some darkness to the sound, and it's also putting it into the background because of the delay and the pitch down effect. I have also here a big reverb to put it in the back. Lots of delay and actually another grain delay. So you can play around with those to create these kind of textures. And this is going to add a bit more room to my kick. Next up, I have my percs. So here I have these patterns. For my percs, I have some congas, some percs and some toms. And with the kick. So first the toms. I have 2 layers of toms here with some patterns like this. I play a bit around with the velocity and the humanization. So you have an example here. So I'm just using here a tom sound that I play with the pitch and with the transient here with the attack. And what I'm going to do on these toms is really using these overdrive and EQs to really put the thing in the lower mids and to have something more dark. Because without it, it's really like a very clear perc. And if you put already the overdrive with a very low tone and 100% wet, you see it's going to distort and make the thing really centered here in the lower mids. And then if you EQ, you get only this tom sound that is very dull. I have a slight reverb here just for the room. I sidechain and I will do the same here with this one, but with another pitch here. Then I have this high perc. So here I took a small part of a loop. Actually, I then use and make some patterns with that loop to make this rhythm. And then I'm going to use the pitch down effect again, but this time with a shifter. And then everything is going to be EQ to get something really dark. Finally, I have this conga. Again, I'm playing here with the pitch, with the length, and I can change also the warp mode here to get different sounding congas. And again, I'm gonna use the same technique here with the overdrive to make it more dark. And then the grain delay with some pitch down effect. So everything here is grouped together. I then have an overall EQ in the mixing phase. I'm just gonna create that rhythm. So next I have my drums. For the drums, I have some shakers, some open hats, some hi-hats, and also a ride. So for the shaker, I'm gonna use this sample that is actually put in an offbeat kind of effect. So this one is the same sample as this one, but I have more volume. So it creates a velocity movement. And I'm really emphasizing the offbeat sound. I'm playing here with the Hallucination preset, which is a kind of plate reverb from Ableton, and it's really effective for the groove techno. And then it's just EQing because, of course, I have a lot of mid-range that I don't want here. Also lots of very high end that is a bit too much, too sharp. So I'm gonna EQ this. I'm gonna use another shaker here, so just another sample from which I play also with the pitch here and different volumes, different parts of a shaker loop. And again, I'm gonna create this very dull sound with some shifter when I pitch it down and EQ. I have another shaker here, which is gonna emphasize again the offbeat, but this time it's just another type of velocity and another loop compared to this one. So this was the first one, and this is the second one. Again, playing with the pitch and with the EQ. Then I have an open hat. This one is very classic. Again, playing with that reverb. EQ here to make it more dark. Finally, a hi-hat loop, which is almost like a shaker. So really nice rhythm. And as you can see here, I'm using the transient mode, and it's gonna cut all the decay from all of these percs or hi-hats, because without it, you see it's some hi-hats. When I put the transient mode, I'm gonna reduce that part, the length, and I'm gonna get just the attacks from these little elements, and it's gonna create almost like a shaker and something that gives that rhythm in the high end after the EQ. Finally, I have a ride, and this time to make an interesting pattern, I'm using the sequencer Roser, which is a Max for Live device. I'm gonna randomize the velocity here, and it's gonna trigger here that ride with some different velocities. I'm playing also here the pitch. I wanted something that really sounds more like a high-end ride. I'm gonna then record this and use this as a sample. And then I'm gonna progressively open it in the track with that auto filter, and I'm also EQing to get something less aggressive. As you can see, all of this is grouped together, sidechain properly, and then just balance EQ at the end. Next up, I have my Synths sounds. So for this one, I have two different blips and plucks. So the first one here is that sound. So to do that, I'm using the Ocean pluck, which is a preset from Ableton. I'm creating a dissonant chord with that tool. So a +5, +7, +6, whatever, it's gonna create that dissonant feeling. And then I'm just putting it more into a reverb, sidechaining, and then I'm playing here with the attack and the brightness and a bit of echo to get that interesting sound. So this is going to be the call, and then you have the response here, which is a blip sample, again from Ableton. I'm using again that chord tool to make something dissonant, and then it's just the same processing, and it also makes sure it's in the same room and it's going to be coherent between those two elements, like this. And in my second drop, I have another blip. This one is very classic that you can hear from Kuss sometimes in his tracks. It's almost like a blip from the hospital, like a heartbeat. And it's made from just an analog sine wave in Serum. You put it in an envelope to make a pluck, and then it's just a bit of dimension to make it more wide and a bit of reverb. And then you gotta properly EQ so that it's not too much here in the mid-range, and all of this together is going to create another kind of condenser here. Finally, I have some effects, and these one are very characteristic from Kuss sound. He likes to use some animal sounds, some jungle, tribal kind of sounds. So here I'm using some sample from animals. So I found some in KSHMR sample pack, but you can also find them in BBC Sounds. It's a free sample library where you can find this type of sound if you want. And then it's just playing around again with the same tools. So the grain delay and the pitch down effects. So for instance, this is my sample. This is a very cheap sample. Without a grain delay, it sounds like this. When you put the grain delay on, you can create different sounds. Everything would work in the context of this track. And then you can also play with the pitch down effect. And it's going to create this. You can also play here with the pitch down effect. For instance, you can pitch it down, then you warp it, you get another sound, and then you can pitch it up again. And you can get these very interesting sounds. And so you just gotta put these samples randomly in the track and making sure it's placed correctly, depending on the drop, on the different interactions, connections between the elements. I'm playing here with another one that I make also move with some LFO with the auto filter. So for instance, here the sound is moving and the frequency is also cutting at the same time here. I have another channel here with a bit more delay, different sounds, different pitch effects, as you can see. And I have a final layer here, which is more like whisper sweeps. But again, I'm playing here with a pitch effect and the grain delay. And then regarding the arrangement, it's very progressive as it's a groove kind of track. So you have here some elements that are adding up progressively, then it's cutting at a drop, you get another bleep coming and this type of stuff. You can also check this in the project file. So that's it guys for this track. I hope you liked it. Tell me what you think in the comments. Thank you guys so much and I see you in the next one. Ciao.